Hey everybody, I'm Faith, and I have Down syndrome. But our podcast is not really about that exactly.
And I'm Andrea. I'm friends with Faith. Our podcast is about conversations and connections.
It's about how we are the same and how we are different.
For each episode, Faith and I interview a different guest. Some of our guests experience intellectual and developmental disabilities, also known as IDD, and some don't. We talk about friendship, family, adulthood, and, when it comes up, disability.
Our podcast is called Everybody In because we are so interested in everybody.
So let's get started. Hey everybody, I'm Andrea Moore, one of your hosts for Everybody In, a podcast conceived and produced by the Wayfaring Band. And as Maya Angelou said, faith is the evidence of the unseen. And we have that evidence right here in the sound booth with us today. She is sitting right next to me.
Yep, that's me. And I am Faith Widrine. I am Andrea's co-host. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone. Faith and I are super excited. We've got a great show planned today. Faith, who are we chatting with today?
GaNun.
Yes, GaNun. Now, Jen works for the Wayfaring Band and helps out in the office, so we do already know Jen well, but we're really excited to kick it off with her because she's a really deeply interesting, kind person, and it should be a good show. Faith, let's just talk a little bit about the format. So you're going to take the lead with Jen. Can you tell us what you're going to do?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask her some questions, and she's going to ask me some questions, so we're going to go back and forth.
And do you know what she's going to ask you?
No idea.
No idea, right? She gets to surprise you.
Right.
So, yeah, Faith has prepared 2 questions for Jen, and then Jen has prepared 2 questions.
2 surprise questions.
For Faith, and then we'll see what happens.
Yes.
You ready to get going?
Yes, I
All
am.
right, let's do this.
Okay. So, Jen, tell me about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Faith. So I am working with the Wayfaring Band also. You are both my coworkers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am here on a part-time basis right now. I work about 20 hours a week with the Wayfaring Band, and I help with administrative tasks. So whatever the band is working on and how I can support them is what I do. I am also a lead teacher with a program called Be Beautiful, Be Yourself. It's a collaboration between the Colorado Ballet and the Global Down Syndrome Foundation, where I teach ballet classes for young people who are experiencing Down syndrome. So I do that once a week. I wish we had more classes available, but I do that once a week on Monday evenings. And then I'm also a performer. I'm an old dancer, a choreographer, and a musician in a few different projects in town.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, Faith, if you want, why don't you kick it off with your first question for Jen, and we'll see what else you can learn about each other.
Okay, sounds good.
Great.
So who is your best friend, and why are they so special to you?
That's a great question. My best friend is my husband, Andy Thomas. He's so special to me because he's really caring. He's confident, and he's empathetic, and we care about a lot of the same things, so we connect a lot with each other. We both really care about music. We care about the arts. We both really care about animals, which is important to me and to Andy. And he's special to me, and he's a good friend to me because he supports me, and he kind of gives me more confidence with things that I don't have confidence in. So I feel like Andy is a really good friend to me because he allows me to see myself the way that sometimes I can't see myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Faith, do you have anyone that makes you think of in your own life when you hear Jen talk about Andy?
Yes, I really do. I relate to that very much. Thank you for sharing that information because I always feel the same thing with Connor as well.
Your fiance?
Yes, my fiance. I think everything what you said, I feel the same way as Connor.
Cool.
I do believe he's my best friend too.
Cool.
That's
So,
cool.
Yeah. And I feel like when I met Andy, we started our relationship with dating. And then now that we're 10 years into being together, we're learning what it's like to also be best friends and what it's like to really be a life partner. And I wonder, Faith, if you were friends with Connor first before you started dating, or if you started a more like a love relationship with Connor first.
I think we were friends at first, because he and I are a part of our different programs together. So like our first program was like a bar club, or how he was the board of the director of the Wayfaring Band. And I think his mom did a program as well of UFO. So he and I really hit it off.
Yeah.
I'm also friends with his sister, because I went to camp because she used to be my counselor.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine that you've seen some values in Connor as a friend that you really that are really important to you, that now you're ready for Connor to, he is your fiance and you're ready for him to be your husband one day.
yes, I always think that because when I was at my cousin's wedding, I was like imagining how it's gonna be like. So yeah,
Fun. Yeah.
Very cool.
Thanks.
It's also neat to hear both of you talk about that and just realizing that sometimes the connection can start as friendship and bloom into romance, and sometimes it can start as romance and then kind of, eventually deepen into true best friendship. I mean, that's not just any friendship, that's the best friendship.
yes.
Which is super cool. How great. I've learned a lot about both of you. What do you think, Faith? Are you ready to move on to the next one?
Yes,
Awesome. Should we turn it over to Jen?
please.
Great.
Okay, so my question, now that we've already talked about our friends, and with this being a podcast on difference, my question for you is, what are some of the differences that you experience that make you feel confident and special? And how do you think about that when you're with your friends and your family?
Well, for my friends and my family, they're always there. They made me feel very comfortable, supporting. I think it's great to have family and friends around me.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, please.
So, the first part of your question, Jen, let's see if we can break that one down again. Would you repeat that first part?
Sure. Yeah. I was asking, what are the differences that you feel confident and happy with?
So things that, just to make sure I understand, so things that maybe are different about Faith, but that make her feel special and cool.
Yes.
So are there some things, Faith, in your life that might be different from your friends or your family or your coworkers, things that make you different than other people that you think are awesome?
Well, I really don't feel different with my friends or family. There's always the same because it makes me feel comfortable, loving, and comfort from my friends and family. Because I really do feel like they're always there for me, and I just feel so blessed to have friends and family. It's always been normal. So, but thank you for asking that question.
That's a good example of something that's the same,
Yeah.
right? That's very cool. It's like just normalizing, right? That friends and family and the support that you feel. I wonder, Jen, if you could give us an example in your own life of a way in which you feel different.
Sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I feel different sometimes because I'm a woman in music, and I feel surrounded by a lot of men in music. And one moment, this has kind of two different perspectives. One moment that I will always remember is I was on tour with a band, a lot of folks in the band, 30 plus people touring all together. And we showed up at our venue that we were performing at that night. And the door person asked, "Are you with somebody in the band?" So he assumed, because I was with a big group of people, there were a lot of men, and I was one of the only women in the group, that I might not be a part of the performing group, that I was just there as a guest. And part of me looks at that and feels different and feels a little offended that somebody might assume that I couldn't be a part of that group. Another part of me feels like it's a special moment for me to recognize, to see how maybe a lot of women feel this way, and to experience something that maybe a lot of women experience on a daily basis. I feel really lucky to work with people that feel similar to me, and that I feel welcome when I come into my workplace. And maybe some women don't have that experience with their workplace, or maybe even with their friends. So I felt like that was an experience that made me feel different, because I was one in the only group that was a woman. And then it also gave me some perspective that this is something I can remember. And maybe I don't want to put that assumption on somebody else when I see a group of people that are different from each other.
That's interesting. So did you get that, Faith? So it's like when she's with a big band, the guy at the door thought that she was like a girlfriend. They didn't think she was a musician because she's a woman. And so sometimes as a woman, people might not realize that she can also be a performer and a musician. So it's like being a woman in music is something it sounds like makes Jen feel different. Like there aren't as many women in professional music, I think. That's something that where women are still trying to literally rock the inclusion, working against the patriarchy in music. But that I think you're saying it sounds that you feel like it's cool to be a woman in music.
Right. Yeah, that it's a special experience still.
And it's an important, that's music I want to listen to, right? I want to listen to music that represents my life and my perspective as a woman too, not about being a woman, but I just want to see a woman in that role rocking out, right? So can you think, Faith, of anything else in your life like that? So it could be disability, but it could be about being a woman, or being maybe the only wild one, the only one who's outgoing, and everyone, sometimes you're at a place where everyone's quiet, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you have anything like that comes to mind?
I think part of my life is like also what Jen said about being a woman.
Do you feel like it's hard sometimes to be a woman?
Sometimes. Just only the part, how women like us always get, periods sometimes.
Total drag.
And I know. Well, it's because every time when I get it, it feels like it sucks to be a woman.
I get that feeling once a month too. I do feel like it sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel sometimes of being a woman. But
and do you ever feel like it's cool to be a woman?
But I'm glad you mentioned that, because it really does feel, cool, and it makes me feel like I can, as a woman, just be myself as a woman, and I was watching this TV show. It was my sister's favorite show. But it showed a lot about women, like females and everything. And she was, so confident, very strong about being a woman, and how she's a good kind of actress she is. And I think I was like, wow, I wish I was like that. So
You remember the name of the show?
I think it's called Vikings.
Oh, yeah, I know
okay.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that woman and think that too. I want to be that powerful.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's my sister's favorite TV show.
She's
But
got good taste.
yeah. But that's how I feel sometimes of being a woman or a lady. But there's both between good or what really sucks.
Yeah, I can relate to this a little bit. Sometimes I feel like it's not because I'm a woman, it's just because I'm me. I have a lot of emotions. And I show that a lot when I participate in anything. I can feel really nervous. I can feel really scared. I can feel sometimes very confident. And I can feel emotional in the way that it's going to come out in a physical form. Like maybe I'm crying or maybe I'm shaking because I'm nervous or something. And sometimes I want to see that as being a source of power for me. That because I have a lot of emotions and I feel a lot, I can also be maybe empathetic towards other people or other creatures or how other people might be feeling. So it's kind of like a superpower, like I can really feel what that is when somebody else might be experiencing something, maybe even if it's not an experience that I've had before. And then sometimes I just think those emotions suck.
Yeah.
I can see them as a really cool, beautiful thing. And then I can see them as something like, ugh, God, I wish I didn't have to have this every month or 5 times a day or whatever it is,
Yeah. But sometimes, for me, how it feels like when my family talks to me, it really feels like, but I'm going to mention about my disability, but a part of that is like I can't, how a woman always get pregnant or something. It really feels like I can't because of my disability. And I don't know why my sisters keeps telling me I can't have babies. I just, every time when I see those kind of women, it really feels like, why can I have a baby? They're just, I know they're a lot to handle, but I can see the other side.
So thanks so much for bringing that up, Faith. That's
I didn't mean to bring that up, but I just want to share.
Good that you did.
So,
I'm really happy you brought it up. It's interesting you brought it up too with the three of us because, we're 3 women all in our 30s and actually none of us have children.
Well, I know that for sure.
Well, and sometimes
I'm just saying like women in general.
right. But
So,
but I mean that like I think Jen and I maybe, and I'll let Jen speak for herself, but I can relate to the questions, I guess. Like I don't always have the same feelings about it, but in the world, a lot of women our age do become mothers and they do have children. And I have not done that either. And so I have a lot of questions sometimes in my own mind about that. And so it's good to hear. Sometimes I can feel alone when I can like be traveling, for example, and I meet a lot of other women and I feel like I'm the only woman who is unmarried with no children. And I can feel really different about that. And so it's just
Is that including the woman from Arizona you were with?
When we went to Arizona on the trip?
Yeah.
And that she had children? Yeah. So sometimes when we go Arizona, and even if I go further away, sometimes when I'm traveling abroad to other countries, I can really notice that difference. So as women, there are a lot of ways that we can live. That's true. And raising children is one way. So when you imagine, Faith, for yourself, what you just said was that sometimes you do imagine that you would want to have a baby. Is that how you feel about it? That it's something you would want to be a mother?
Yes. For women out there in the world, when they have kids and if they're a mother, it feels like I want to be, just like them, like I know kids can be hard to handle with, but I can,
You think you can handle it?
well, yeah, because I know it can get crazy sometimes, but sometimes they're, cute,
Yeah.
and it really makes me feel like I want to have a baby. So,
I wonder if this is something that I can relate to with kind of how you said that sometimes when I talk to my family about this, I get told like, no, you can't have children
because of the disability.
right. And I wonder if sometimes it becomes like a question of choice, like, is that really my choice? Or, oh boy, excuse me, this is the emotion I was talking about. Sometimes I feel I can relate to having somebody else make an assumption about you that isn't really you, right? And so part of my story, Faith, is that I have a connective tissue disorder, and it's something that affects my health a lot. And I also have a heart condition that has caused me some issues. So when talking about becoming a mother, I get really emotional because I don't know.
You're going to make me cry.
I don't know if that's something that I've wanted or that I do really want. And I feel like the choice has been taken away from me. So I've had some other people say, oh, you could never have a kid, or like, why would you do that to your children? Some of the things that I hear about, and this is mostly online, not from my friends or my family, but with the connective tissue disorder that I have, there's a really good chance that if I myself had a child, that the kid would also have it. And some people might feel like this is a thing that we know about and we can cope with this in our bodies and our lives, and that would be our choice to make that decision. And then other people kind of put it on me that it would be not okay to do. And then it all of a sudden feels like it's not my choice anymore to decide if I want to have kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, what do you think, Faith? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I really do. Because I feel the same way too. Every time when I talk to my two sisters, they keep, telling me I can't have a baby, because of my disability. And every time when they talk to me, it feels like I get really confused sometimes, and it was like, okay, but it really feels like they're judging me about not having kids.
Well, there's a couple things that are going.
Like, I know they're trying to help me and
Right.
everything, but they don't need to tell me that. So,
Well, there's a couple things I'm hearing that may be at play, and one, there are two questions. One about the disability is it possible for your body to have Down syndrome and have a baby and get pregnant? And so I think there's some confusion about this issue. I know that for myself, it's something that I need to re-Google, because I remember hearing, and I think also there has not been a lot of social research around this issue. I think socially, the idea of parents with Down syndrome having children is something that our culture, we don't have a lot of spaces for families where both parents, where parents have disabilities. There aren't a lot of supports set up in our culture to support that. And so I think you're right that not just your sisters, but I think there are a lot of other institutions and people and doctors who have some assumptions about disability, about whether or not you could be a good parent, that may not feel fair, that may not be true.
well, yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because everything a part of me, it really feels like it's not fair. Everything is not fair. For me, it's not. And that's why I feel so sad and angry. And I love my family very much, and I understand they're trying to help me, but it's not okay for them to tell me to not have kids, you know? Sometimes they can be hard, but every time, like, I'm really good with kids, you know?
Yes. So a couple things that I guess want to offer also for people who might be listening and have some of these same questions for themselves. One thing that we can do together, just so you can get some more information from other people and not put as much pressure on just your sisters, right? So like,
well, it will be nice.
Well, right. We all feel that way about family from time to time. But we also, thank goodness, we have family who
Yes.
are willing to spend so much time and energy to help support us, right? So you and I can do some Googling, and that's a great resource for all people. Google is very important and powerful. But we can do some Googling to first let's see what we're talking about. Are we talking about the biology and anatomy, about what your body can do? Because there's two questions. One is, what can your body do? Can your body have a baby if you wanted, right?
Yes.
The second question is, let's say, there's other ways to be parents. Having a baby from your own body is certainly not the only way to be a parent. There's also adoption, there's fostering, there are a lot of other ways to be involved in that, right?
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because when we were in London and Scotland, and I was like talking to somebody, one of our friends, and I think he was saying, you don't need to be pregnant. You can just do like adoption or something.
Yeah, and that's where we get into the area of our culture and our society. And because to adopt a child, we have to have an agency or someone that says it's okay, and we agree that you're a parent who is fit. You're a person who is fit to be a parent. And one of the things I think that we think about a lot, or I do, at least in my role with the Wayfaring Band, is how can we help raise some awareness? Like, I think there are a lot of people who haven't really considered that you might want to be a parent, that you might want to have a baby. And that even though, like you said, yes, it could be difficult. And yes, it's not a casual thing to care for another small human being, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible. Right. And that, but I think your sisters are also bringing up a good point that it's difficult because we don't have any social supports for that. So I think you've raised something that we don't have an answer to today. This isn't something we can have an answer. But what I love about this moment is that I'm hearing your voice loud and clear saying, hey, I want to be a mom. I want to have a baby.
Yeah.
So like, hey, world, get out of my way.
That's how I feel with my sisters.
Well, and they're, and your sisters know, I think they also have an understanding that the world also has some barriers that they want to help you. They don't want you to get stuck behind all these other barriers about being a parent. And so I think, I give them a little credit for, even though it's frustrating when you're an adult and other adults are telling you what to do, I think that's frustrating. And I think it's good that we're putting this out there as an issue, because I'm like, hey, listen up, world. If you're listening to this podcast, like, listen up. Like, here is a beautiful woman with Down syndrome who wants to be a mom.
Yes.
And so if you're listening and you never before in your life thought that was possible, then this is an invitation for all of us to open our minds and start thinking about, hey, where are we making it hard for Faith to be a mom?
Right.
Like, is there a way that we can change some of our social pieces so that you might be able to have more support than just your sisters, right? Because you would need the support not just of family, but of the world.
Yeah.
And that's where, as a society, I think we would have some work to do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe the first question is to just let it be open. Do we or do we not want to have kids? It
Yeah.
can be our own choice, maybe.
And maybe, yeah, it's your own choice, all of our own choice. And you're also not the only one, right, Faith? I mean,
Yeah,
part of what's
I
cool.
know that.
Well, it's cool that you're bringing it up, because by sharing it with us and not just your family, it's interesting to hear how it opens the door with Jen, and like that she has a similar thing. People in her life being worried, they love her, they're worried, they're trying to help, but it also doesn't feel good when other people are trying to take away your choice.
Well, and I kind of feel the same thing too as Jen. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Because I feel that way sometimes. World cannot be unfair. Because for my life it's not fair at all. Everything is not fair, and that's why I'm so mad and sad. And so I just don't like people telling me what to do or telling me like it's not okay. Like when my family, if my sister is ever going to have kids, you can always be an aunt, Like I agree with them of saying, yes, I know I can't be an aunt, but why can't I be a mother? You don't have a choice.
What a great example of a microaggression.
Right.
Right. I mean, with love, I say this, but like that's a good example. A microaggression, right, being a time when someone thinks they're making a casual comment, but it actually has it has an impact that hurts. And saying you can always be an aunt when someone wants to be a mother can be painful.
Yeah.
Can be painful.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is actually what we've gotten into here with this conversation is a good segue into the second question on your list. Faith, do you want to ask Jen the next question on our list?
Sure.
And also, before we move on, I just want to thank both of you for sharing your personal experiences around that, because I think a lot of women and, and men too. I mean, I think there's also, there may be some people who are interested in being parents, but a lot of people could relate to this idea of just like wanting
can I
more
ask,
choices around family building, right?
Right.
Yeah. But I was going to ask, like, what you just said about the men, is that including for the, with gender-wise?
Yes, that was good. That's actually why I was trying to make that adjustment in my language, meaning so men, women, people who are gender nonconforming. I think all people, there are a lot of people of all genders who are interested in being parents. And I think that a lot of people maybe face some similar challenges that if they don't have a partner of the opposite sex, or if they have a different gender presentation, that the world is not as interested in making space for them to be parents too. So I think actually that's a good example of a way in which we are more the same than different, that sometimes I think we can get stuck that a family has to look a certain way. And I think a lot of us in the world could benefit from a more broad definition of what a family could look like.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think we got into a subject that feels really deep for both you and I. And I think we also touched on something that probably feels very real about both of us, that sometimes feeling different and then having, let me go back here. Feeling different can just make you feel like you're not heard a little bit. Like people maybe don't understand you because you're a little different. It's really not what it is.
it's actually the perfect segue, because listen to Faith's next question.
Okay.
Faith's
All right.
next question, I think, is going to get to the heart of like exploring this a little bit further, I hope.
Great.
So let's
Yeah.
try that one.
Do you ever feel like you left out from other people?
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yes.
Is that a little
Great
bit kind of where we're
segue.
getting into?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like I was saying before, I can feel different sometimes with the way that I react to things, with the way that I understand things, and because I have a different body. And this isn't a body that I grew up knowing that I was different. I didn't have a diagnosis until I was in my mid-20s. So this is something that I'm in a very big learning season right now, and a big shift in my life where I'm starting to identify and kind of own my differences. And that's because of how they affect me, how I hold them, and it's how other people see me. So lots of times I feel different. I have to be pretty careful with what I do with my body physically now. And I used to not have to be very careful. I grew up in a dance competition studio where I was super active with dancing, and I grew up feeling like a fit person that I could just do whatever I wanted to with my body. And now although I've presented myself for 30 years as this fit, capable person, I now have to take a step back from situations sometimes and say, actually, I can't do that. I can't lift that heavy thing, or I can't be that type of active for 8 hours any longer. It's not a thing that I can do. So I feel left out when I have to explain that. And although I'm not angry by that, I see the assumptions people make about me, and I'm not angry by any means. I have to be able to speak my truth and say what I need in certain situations. But sometimes it still does give me the feeling of, it's just a little reminder, like, oh, you're different now. You have to speak to your difference on an almost daily basis. So yeah, I do feel left out sometimes because of it.
Can relate to that, huh, Faith?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's take a break. The Wayfaring Band is not a rock and roll band, are we, Faith?
Mm-mm.
So what type of band are we?
We are a band of travelers.
Travelers, right. So the Wayfaring Band takes original, transformative adventures that include adults with and without cognitive and developmental disabilities. But anybody can come on a trip with us, right, Faith?
Yes.
Like who?
Everybody.
Like everybody.
Yes.
Well, as long as they're a grown-up.
Yes.
They have to be a grown-up because we work with adults.
Well, an adult everybody.
An adult everybody. So if you're an adult everybody, you're welcome to join the Wayfaring Band on tour. If you're a caregiver, a student, a teacher, a professional, an activist, an interested adult everybody community member, all of you are welcome to join the Wayfaring Band on tour and experience our culture of inclusion firsthand. Be a part of it. How can they learn more, Faith?
Learn more at www.thewayfaringband.com.
Welcome back. Should we hear what Jen's next question is?
Yes, please.
Great.
Is it okay if it's based on that question?
Of course.
So, Faith, I gave some examples of why I feel different with my body and having to be careful with it. Do you have moments where you feel different about things? And then do you find ways to share that with people?
Can you break it down for me, please?
Yeah. So are there moments throughout your days where you notice that you're different?
Yes, I do feel like I'm different. Like different, like how I feel left out sometimes.
Yeah. How is that?
Well, like every time when when I was in Chicago.
And you just got back from Chicago, right? So this
Yes,
was a
I
recent
did.
trip? Okay.
Yes. But every time when I see both of my sisters talking to each other back and forth, it feels like they're not including me in their conversations, and it's not fair. I wish I can speak up, but I don't know how to speak up because I don't know what they're going to say. And the other part of being different is like everything is not fair, and I don't understand. And that's why it hurts too much to think. So I think that's the only tool I have in mind.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, being part of something, like the Wayfaring Band or any programs I'm in or my family or my friends, it really feels like I can be a part of, and that's why it makes me very happy. And
Yeah.
always want to put a smile on my face.
I'm like
Yeah.
laughing. I have to interject only because I think
I'm
it's
really
so.
glad.
I'm sorry. It's just because you crack me up, Faith, that you started this whole conversation with like, I love my family. I love the support that I get from my family, and I know that that's true. I know how much you love your family, and like so many of us, you're like,
Can
I'm
I ask
so
why
annoyed.
that's funny?
It's funny because hold on, it's not the funny part yet. So you said you love your family, and then you also said, I'm so sick of my sisters talking back and forth and not including me. And it's funny, ironic in the sense that, so for me, I feel the same way. I love my family. I'm so close to my family. People who know the Moores, everybody, we are kind of like famous in terms of like what a tribe we are. Like a lot of people know our family, right? But then like this weekend, my family is going on this big trip up to Grand Lake to the mountains, and my mom started planning it months ago, and she got a cute little cabin, and like she invited all my siblings and all their spouses and all their kids, and you know, months ago when she told me about it, I was like, I'm not going. She said, why? And partly I have a block party thing on my street that I don't want to miss this weekend, but more than that, I was like, because I see you all the time. Like, I don't need to go to the mountains and hang out with you. We live in the same town. I literally live next door to my sister. My mom lives 2 miles away. My brother lives, not far. We see each other constantly. And so I'm like, I don't need to go be in a cabin and hang out. And like part of me feels really guilty about that because I know how privileged I am to have a beautiful family. And not everyone has that. Not everyone has family support, and that is super real. I feel so blessed. Like you said earlier, I'm really lucky that I have that, and I appreciate it very deeply. And at the same time, sometimes I'm just like, nope, I'm not going on that trip. And I don't really offer an explanation. I'm just like, you guys have fun. So it makes me laugh because when I hear you talk about your family, I feel I connect with you. Because I hear you kind of like grumble about your sisters, but I also hear you say that they love you and support you. And that feels true to me. And that's why I was laughing, because I feel a connection with you about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back to what you were actually saying about being left out. You were saying like just sometimes with family, sometimes.
Well, like sometimes it can be both between families and friends sometimes. I see that with my different providers, they're always talking about their business and going back and forth all the time. And, like clients can be friends or providers can be friends.
Well, that's interesting. Now you put your finger on something that's really big in our world. So when we talk about clients and providers in our world of disability, sometimes that means a client could be someone who experiences a disability, right? And
Yes.
A provider is someone who's running some sort of a service program to provide a service to fill a need for that person. So do you feel like it's hard sometimes to create genuine friendships across those boundaries between a client and a provider?
I do feel, well, like every time when I see them, they're always talking about different things or like business or something they're always talking about. But it feels like, sometimes they do talk to us sometimes, but not all the time. Mm-hmm. So, like we're talking in the car or when we get out of the car, we don't talk, and it's like, okay, this is weird. Like why do you not talk to us? Do you not like us? Do you want to be friends? Like one of my other providers, she lives not too far away from my house. She and I are like the same age. But when we go with our different groups, it feels like they're talking back and forth, and it didn't make me feel so good. It just made me feel different.
Left out. Right, which is what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think those power dynamics can be really tricky.
Mm-hmm. And I think it could be hard to find ways for yourself to find resolve, to find a way to feel better about it, and maybe speak up for yourself and say, I feel left out here, it can be really hard.
Well,
when you're feeling
speaking
that
of
way.
hard, like it's hard for me to, speak up a little bit, I just don't know what they're going to say.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think they understand about the need I have.
It's interesting that you bring up that you want to be able to share a need that you have, right? I've learned a lot since working with the Wayfaring Band. It's only been since March, but I knew you all here before that. And I've learned a lot about what it means to have mutual aid in a relationship, and know that you have special gifts and you have special needs, and that this is a place that we can share all of those things. And sometimes it feels like that conversation needs to happen first for you to know I can share my need here and I can tell you what I need. Sometimes it feels like it needs to be the director of the Wayfaring Band saying, no, this is okay that you have a need here or you have a gift here and you can talk about that here. You always have that space. And it can feel hard when it doesn't feel like that's already a part of a natural relationship, or it's naturally already a part of a relationship, So then it's coming up with solutions so you can say, I feel left out when this is happening.
Well, I wish I can tell her, but I just don't know what she's going to say. And feels like I'm going to, cry a little bit, I don't know how she's going to manage that.
Well, and sometimes we have to take that risk, right? That may not be something that she doesn't want. It may be something that she would love and welcome. And so that's one of the things I think a lot about being an adult, right? What does it mean to be a grown-up? What does it mean
Well, I know what it means to be a grown-up, it's like speaking for yourself or something.
Yeah. And in this case, this is a good example where it can be hard when we care about people and when we're worried about how they'll react, but it can be a good practice to try and take that leap and to say, hey, I want to share some of my thoughts with you, and just see what happens. Because sometimes what usually happens to me when I have the courage to speak my mind, sometimes what happens is the other person says, I'm so glad you brought that up. I feel the same way, or I didn't know you needed that. And it's not always conflict, right? Sometimes it's not always bad. And it's okay. Like you said, you might cry and okay. I cry all day, girl. We cry. It's like we do what we have to do in order to feel free. And if that means releasing our emotions, then we release them. We let them out.
Well, yeah, I understand. It's just, a lot of people can be one of our favorite friends,
Well, and that's true too. That sometimes there are boundaries in place for a reason, right? And that is an important thing. And it's hard to learn. It's hard to learn boundaries for me,
Well, I'm doing a good job for boundaries too, I'm really good at boundaries, like staying away from that person and not think about it so much.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, and I think it can be something that we all deal with. It's not something that just one person's dealing with. I think we all deal with boundaries.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, I might want to meet a new friend and I might be like, oh, I really want to hang out with that person. And they aren't in a place where they have room for a new friend. Or it may be that so for example, I, a couple of years ago was going to a therapist and I was having therapy like every other week.
I have a therapist.
Great. So that's
same.
Boom. We all have therapists. So when I first started seeing my therapist, something that was super strange to me that I had to get used to was that I'd be like, she'd come in and be like, so let's talk about how it's going. And my socialization is I'm always like wanting to say, how are you? Like, tell me about your life, and she's like, we're not here to talk about my life. And she set that boundary with me of like, you don't get to know about me. I could ask her like, how are you? And she'd say, fine, let's start, just no information. And as I got to know her better, there were tiny little crumbs, right? That she'd be like, oh, I just got back from a trip to blah, blah, blah. But we wouldn't get into, how she's fighting with her person or partner. I don't know anything about her in terms of those personal things. And so that's an example sometimes with a provider that's an example of where it may be like, wow, I don't know what's appropriate here, you know, and it may not always be appropriate to be friends. And that's like in case by case, right? Is like having to figure out what those boundaries might be. I'm getting a little just aware of the fact that we still have 2 questions left.
Oh boy.
Yes.
I know. I'm like, is that okay? So Faith, you have
we can
one
move
more.
on.
So you're going to look at your third question, Faith, and let's ask Jen that one.
Okay. Everybody needs some help sometimes, but what do you need help with?
Yeah, thank you. So I shared a little bit about my physical ability sometimes. Sometimes I need help. Physically, sometimes I need somebody to help me lift a thing or get through this really busy part of my day if I'm feeling tired and I don't feel like I can walk that far any longer, things like that. I need physical help sometimes. And then sometimes I feel like I need emotional help and support. I need patience. I need some assistance with confidence sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I need to hear somebody say, Jen, you got this. Go ahead, do it, you know? So sometimes I feel like I need help with physical tasks, and then I need help with getting through some barriers that maybe have been set on me, but also maybe I have put up. Some things that I don't feel very confident or strong or powerful in, and I need some help with feeling better about it so I can get things done, you know?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Any follow-ups, Faith? Any other questions about what Jen said?
Well, I didn't want to mention this out loud, but when Jen was saying, like, you need help of, walking fast or need to keep up with somebody, like you need help with.
Right.
But I was whispering to Jen, I was saying,
You're pointing at me right now.
yeah.
I see you pointing at me right now. So what are you trying to say? That I will basically drag you along? If you're not walking fast enough, I will drag you?
Yes.
That's true about me. Actually, that is well documented that it is true about me. And what do I say when I'm trying to get everybody to hurry up?
Well, like some people can have long legs, so like
Yes, you're
like
right.
what you do, like come on, like hurry up, or
yeah.
or if you're speaking French, I'm saying beep 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 means go fast,
Oh my! Wow, you're speaking a little French on us. Okay.
or like what you always do, like Michelle Obama.
It's true. I do say I scream Michelle Obama.
Michelle.
The reason I scream Michelle Obama is because when we were at the Special Olympic World Games a few years ago, Michelle Obama was the keynote speaker. And we were going into the Coliseum in Los Angeles, and it was a huge space. It was surrounded by people, and it was wild. And I was like, come on, come on, come on. And then I was like, we're going to see Michelle Obama, everybody. Let's go. And I was like, come on.
hurry
She's
up.
so excited. Like, let's do it. Let's walk like she would walk. That's how it all started. And at the time, Michelle Obama was like, and still is, like the queen of fitness. It's all about health and like being in the world and moving your body. And so I was like, so now that's just become a thing. When we're on tour with the Wayfaring Band, I will often scream, Michelle Obama. And that means, let's go. We got to walk fast.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. So you're right. Sometimes I need to be reminded that people need help and that we can't all walk as fast as I want to walk all the time. And believe me, I get that reminder every day with the Wayfaring Band. And that's been really good for me. Well, awesome. Should we turn it over to Jen's last question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so are there moments where you wish that people... I have a 2-part question, Faith.
Okay.
Are there moments where you wish that people would ask you if you want help here?
Well, speaking of my dad, so I'm like really short, so which means I have short legs.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mom has short legs, I have short legs, so I can still walk fast, but like for my dad or my siblings, they have long legs as well, and so they walk fast. And every time when I like I'm trying to keep up or something, like it feels like I need to help myself to walk fast or something. And I keep saying like, Dad, my feet hurts. And so he will stop and say, oh, okay. So he would just grab my hand and just walk really fast.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe having somebody say, can I help you walk faster?
Yes.
Do we need a hand or do we need some Michelle Obama
Yes. It feels like I'm having Andrea
moments
inside my head. So
yeah. The second part to that question is, are there places, times, moments that you wish people didn't ask you if you needed help?
Well, that will be really disappointing.
It would be disappointing if people didn't ask you.
Yes.
Can I give you an example of something that I'm thinking of? Maybe I'm having the type of day where I can get things done. It's just going to take me a little bit longer to do something. And sometimes I actually don't want somebody to offer me help. I want to have the space to be able to do something that I set out to do. So I don't want somebody to say, hey, Jen, can I help you here? Or do you need my help? I want the space to be able to do it on my own. So are there moments where you wish that somebody wouldn't ask you, Faith, do you need help here?
Well, when my sister, Marina, for instance, she will come over on Saturday, and sometimes I do need some help, but sometimes I really don't need some help to, there's nothing to do, I don't need your help, Marina, I'm just fine. Or like for my sister Maggie, for instance, I understand she's helping me, pack my things, but I really don't need help to pack my own stuff. Can I be independent to pack my own clothes? Can I be independent to pack my own backpack or something? And, and she keeps saying, how many markers do you want to color? And it feels like I don't want bring little markers. I want to bring a lot. I want to bring a lot of markers.
I want marker freedom.
Yeah,
Freedom for my
to
people
bring
now.
all the markers.
Yes, I want to bring a lot of markers. So, so I'm just saying, why can I bring a lot of markers? And she said, well, you can't just bring a lot, But maybe I just need some help for myself of saying, okay, maybe I don't need to bring a lot of markers, or I can do different things.
Right.
So.
Right. Maybe you can hear somebody's suggestions without thinking that they're trying to be mean or that they're doing anything other than just putting a suggestion out there.
Yeah. Well, they're not trying to be mean.
Sure.
They're just, being very helpful, and I totally understand that. There's different options, I can do different things. I can bring magazines or knitting. So
it is an interesting balance, though, between asking for help and then getting it. It's sometimes,
or not needing to help.
Right. Well, because sometimes we do need help.
Right.
And sometimes we don't. But then it's not always the same thing at the same time. Sometimes I might need help doing something one day, and then the next day I don't. Or I might not have needed some help with something yesterday, but then today I'm in a bad mood, and today I do need help.
Right.
Or whatever, and it changes. And that's not just true for you, Faith. That's true for your sister. It's true for me. It's true for, the people we work with at the Wayfaring Band. When I'm in relationship with someone, I am feeling my way about whether or not they're going to help me, but someone else, the person I'm talking to, is also feeling they also have needs.
Right.
They also need help sometimes. And so I think that's where a lot of the time it can get sticky for me. I struggle. It's gotten better for me, but when I was younger, I never used to want help from men with carrying things. And I used to feel really righteous about I can carry my own bag. Don't try and help me just because I'm a woman. I'm strong, blah, blah, blah. And now a couple things. I realize, like, first of all, that when somebody offers to help me, they're not trying to take away my agency. They're not trying to say that they think I can't do something necessarily. Sometimes people are offering to help because they just want to help.
Right.
And they want to be nice. And that's one of the ways it feels good to help people. Right. And it's one of the ways that we can be kind and show our compassion and care for another human being. You know, it's just to say, hey, can I carry that for you? Or can I help you? I don't know. Carrying is such an easy way to think of it, right? It's like always just that kind of stuff. But sometimes, like, if I have a rough day or feel emotional or feel sad or tired or something, you know, then at work, you know, Kendall, who also works for the Wayfaring Band, might say, is there anything I can do to help you? Or if I'm super stressed about a deadline, she says, you know, is there something I can do to help make your day go faster or easier so that you can focus on what you really need to focus on? And that kind of help is great. But it's a risk, right? I don't know. I think about that when I offer help to people. I think about, is this the kind of help that will be helpful, or is it the kind of help that will be annoying?
Right.
And we don't always have the answers, and we have to try, you know, but it's pretty cool.
Well, for my sister Marina, she's also struggling as well. Because she just broke up her other boyfriend, I think. But she's struggling. Like, she wants to talk to people. You know, I think my parents, I think my mom is, like, really wanting my sister to date someone, you know. And my mom is saying, like, why can't you just hurry up and date someone and get married, have kids?
We're back full circle, right? That's like,
still the children conversation.
Well, that's interesting. And so do you mean, Faith, that you think that might be the kind of help that Marina doesn't need?
Well, I think she doesn't need help of talking because she knows what to say and how she's feeling.
Yeah.
So I think she does a good job for doing that.
And she might just need some space for her heart to heal and for her to get to make her own decisions about that stuff.
Right. You know, and she can always talk to me. You know, like, sometimes we see each other on Saturday. Sometimes we do something fun. And so it's not like things we can work on, but just doing something fun. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, friends, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I feel awesome about our conversation.
Yes, me too.
Do you feel like we've all, I mean, Faith and Jen in particular, do you feel like you've gotten to know each other a little bit better?
Well, I do.
I do too.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for the time.
Because every time when you and I talk about feelings, emotions, it really feels like I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah. We share a lot of the emotions. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And I know it's corny to point it out because it's, you know, the theme of the show and everything. But as I'm reflecting on the conversation we've had, and for me, it is so clear how much more alike we are than different. You know, and that just gets reinforced for me again and again. I mean, we're three, again, adult women in our 30s sitting in a sound booth having a conversation. Like, of course, we're going to have more in common than not.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, our experience is going to be mostly the same. 3 American women who are grown-ups, like, you know, we're going to be encountering a lot of the same things in the world. And for me, it's just powerful to have that reinforced. So
yeah,
it's been a privilege. So thanks.
Thank you.
So, Jen, thank you for being here. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Faith.
Thank you.
And thank you both. And that is it. We have had a wonderful session together, and I am delighted that we were all able to be here. So thanks, everyone, and tune in next time. Everybody In is sound engineered by Karen Hibner with original music by The Dosage. It is produced by the Wayfaring Band, a Denver-based 501c3 nonprofit specializing in life skills and leadership training through travel for adults with and without disabilities. Be sure to rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ta-ta for now.